Good evening. Okay. Am I live? I believe I'm live. Okay. Well, I cannot tell if I think I see one person live. We've had some technical difficulties, but regardless, we're going to begin. Good evening and welcome to everyone tuning in live, and for those who are going to see this recording later on. My name is Leandro Cruz, and I'm truly delighted to be here with you all this evening. I want to first congratulate you for taking the time out of your busy day to invest in yourself, to begin the process of pouring into yourself. We here at the One Academy believe it's truly the best investment you can make when you pour into yourself, when you bet on yourself. All right. As the great Jim Rohn once said, if you change, everything will change for you. And I believe everybody's here this evening, or when you see this particular recording, you want to see changes in your life. And that first step to change starts with awareness. And that's my purpose here this evening, to heighten your level of awareness to the point where you're operating from a different perspective, from a heightened level of awareness, from perspective, so you can see more, do more, and achieve more. Okay, so during this webinar, which I am, it's roughly going to run about 35 minutes or so. I'm trying to keep it nice and condensed. I'm going to be talking about a very, very important topic. Our most valuable asset, which is time, right? I'll be sharing insights on how to properly balance, leverage your time, your asset, more efficiently and effectively towards the realization of your dreams, goals, and or objectives. But before I begin, I see there's 4 people jumping on. I'm gonna take a few moments and talk a little bit about myself while others start jumping on. I know we're a few minutes over the start time of 9 o'clock, but I'll take a few moments while people jump on. I believe they get a pop-up when things are ready to go live. So let me just give you a little bit of background on myself. Again, for those who don't know me, my name is Leandro Cruz. I'm 37 years old. I'm Dominican, born and raised here in New York. I'm happily married to a young lady named Diana Cruz, and I'm a first-time parent. I have a beautiful baby girl who's 21 months, who's sleeping now. Thank God. So I have that particular part of my life where I'm kind of embarking in something new, right? And I'm also, from a professional standpoint, I'm also a business analyst at a financial firm here in New York. I've been there for around 14 years or so. I'm also an entrepreneur. So I'm kind of have 2 things in parallel. I'm working my day job, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I kind of build that and create that on the side, and I kind of work that in parallel. I'm also a certified speaker, trainer, and coach with the John Maxwell team. And I focus on areas of personal development, leadership, and entrepreneurship. So just based off that kind of synopsis of kind of who I am and what I do, you can really kind of come to the conclusion that time is super important to me. It's crucial. It's crucial to me. I'm a family man. I have a day job. I have my own business that I'm running. And I also speak, train, and coach people. So to make all these different facets of my life kind of work in conjunction, I have to definitely balance and leverage my time, properly. It's essential. It's essential to me, and I believe it's essential to each and every one of us. It's a universal thing that we need to kind of learn how to balance and leverage. All right. So that's what I'm going to be talking about this evening. It's a time management webinar. And it's directed on how to balance and leverage your time. As I mentioned, time is our most valuable asset, right? We all have the same at our disposal. We have 24 hours in a day. We have 1,440 minutes in a day, 86,000 or so seconds in a day. What we do with that valuable time each and every day will determine what we see, do, and live in our future. All right. And this is an entrepreneurial webinar. So either you are an existing entrepreneur or you are an aspiring one. Wherever you are today, we all know we have to navigate from where we are. I like to call that our departure point, where you are today, right? In your conditions and circumstances, you're trying to navigate to some place called there, wherever your dream, goal, and objective is, right? So in that process between where you are and where you want to go, that process is a journey, an uphill journey. And time is what is an asset that we must leverage and kind of navigate intelligently, kind of direct between those two points. All right. So what I'm going to share this evening is 8 insights, some of which are directly connected with time management, how to leverage your time properly, and others that kind of work side by side that I want to heighten your awareness about so you're able to kind of leverage your time properly. Okay. So I see we have a few more folks jumping in. Welcome. So I want to start off with the first one. The first insight, first point, however you want to reframe it, is your big picture, your dream, your goal, your objective. The webinar is a time management webinar. How do we leverage our time? But you know, when you're talking about time, you want to leverage that for a purpose, for a goal, for a dream, for an objective. And it all starts with your big picture. It's foundational. Everything begins with your big picture. I want you to think about your big picture, or think about yourself as an architect, right? You're an architect. And what do architects do? They build and construct masterpieces, right? Big, tall buildings and skyscrapers, right? And what does an architect do before he begins to build and construct, right? He needs blueprints. He needs to see the finished product. He needs to see what he's going to build and construct. So then he can kind of leverage his time properly and kind of strategize how he's going to go about that, right? So you're the architect of your future. You're creating your future right now. So you need blueprints. You need to see the big picture before you begin into the action part. Action is part of the process, but you need to kind of have the map, the blueprints out. So that's the first step. And it's comprised of 2 components. It's first, you know, a compelling dream, a goal, however you're framing it. I usually love to frame things as a dream, as a big objective, and goals are kind of stepping stones to get me to that particular kind of arrival point. So it's comprised of 2 components. It first needs to be a target, right? You need to have a target, so a vision, a picture of the future, right? Something that inspires your mind, will, and emotions, right? And then it also has to be kind of followed up by, it has to also be a catalyst. And that's where you hear things as, what's the purpose? What's your why, right? You need to ensure that your dream is truly compelling. It needs to be something that you see in the future that energizes you, but it also has to be a catalyst, something that drives you, that sparks you into action. So you want to make sure you have clarity on both of those kind of points, right? So, because without clarity, if you don't have clarity on what it is that you're aiming for, what you have is confusion. What you have is waste, right? Wasted time, wasted effort, wasted money. So to kind of help you in that process is, I want to just give you a quick kind of tip, is to begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. Like that architect that looks at the blueprints. He's looking at the full picture, the end in mind. And I want to give you an example about that to help you there. So I mentioned earlier that I have a daughter, 21 months, and I usually play different, you know, I spend time with her to kind of develop different skills. And we usually, you know, when I sit down and spend time with her, we usually do puzzles. So I usually, when I work with puzzles, I'm trying to work on her cognitive skills and emotional skills, right? So when I sit with her and I have these 20-piece puzzles, it's always, for me, I'm 37 years old, it's always a struggle for me to build those particular puzzles. I always find myself having to look at the box, at the finished picture when I'm building. Otherwise, I kind of get confused and you know, I waste time. Same thing with our dream, right? We want to look at that box. We want to look at that blueprint. We want to look at that finished product as we're building, as we're constructing, because lack of clarity just hinders initiative. It inhibits persistence and it undermines follow-through. So, you know, we don't stay the course on something we kind of, sort of, see. We need to see it clearly before we can seize it. All right. So to help you in this particular process, whether you already know what your dream is, I think will be time well spent to kind of revisit and dig into some of these kind of questions. I want to give you some questions you can kind of dive into offline and really kind of dig into what it is that's driving you. So remember, I mentioned there's 2 points. There's target. Your dream needs to be a target, something you see in the future, and it also needs to be a catalyst. All right. So I'm gonna give you some target questions, which is, what is your dream? What is your goal? What is your objective? Where do you want to be in 5 years? All right. What does your life look like in 5 years? These are target questions. What are you aiming for? What are you working on, working towards? Okay. So definitely really crystallize what that is. Most people stop there. All they have is a target. But as I go through this webinar, we're going to come back to this particular point because I can literally stay at this particular point with the big picture for the whole hour of the webinar. But obviously, there's more points I'm going to cover. But this is a very important kind of point because it's not something you just kind of start and just go on your merry way. You're going to be kind of referencing and going back to your big picture all the time because that's where your strength is. That's where your power lies. All right. And that leads us to the second part, which are catalyst questions. So once you have clarity on what is your dream, what is your goal, what is your objective, where do you want to be in 5 years? Why is that important to you? All right. Why is that important to you? If you had it, let's say I had a magic wand, you have your goal, you have your dream, whatever that is, what would be different in your life? Really think about that. What would you then be, do, or have if you had that goal, if you had that dream? These are catalyst questions. This is to kind of get the purpose of that target, the why. All right. You need to have clarity on both. All right. You need to have clarity on both. All right. So that is the first particular insight that I'm going to share. Second one, we're going to jump right into it, which is priorities. Now that you have your big picture in mind, you know what you're kind of aiming for, right? Now you have to set some priorities. And we're going to, you know, as we kind of navigate through this particular webinar, you're going to notice that all of us, we basically navigate and have to manage, you know, in different degrees and different kind of different degrees and how would I say? We always have to manage these two components, which is urgent things and important things, right? And what I want you to understand is activity doesn't necessarily mean accomplishment. Activity doesn't necessarily mean accomplishment. Urgent things usually require our immediate attention, but they don't necessarily add value to our big picture. All right. And then there's other things like important things. They don't demand anything from us and they could remain dormant for years, even decades. But those are the things that come from within, from the soul, that are really tied to your passion, to your big picture. All right. So we need to be able to discern between the two. Remember, activity doesn't necessarily mean accomplishment. And what I want to do with this particular point is we want to make a connection. And you'll see this connection as we kind of continue this process. We need to have clarity on what it is that we're aiming for, that big picture. And now we're trying to bring in our priorities, our important things into play, things that are important that are tied to our big picture. And then what we want to do after that is carve out the appropriate time. So we're leveraging our time properly to do the important things that lead us to our big picture. We don't want to be busy being busy. Okay. So you probably notice I have some stuff in the back. And I want to share a particular principle to help you kind of discern between what's urgent and what's important in your life. So it's the Pareto principle, the 80-20 principle that says 20% will give us an 80% return if and when we spend 80% of our time on that 20% of our priorities, on those important things. So I'm going to stand up real quick and kind of illustrate this. This is an exercise that is geared, that I encourage you, whether you've seen this before, it'll be good to rehash it. If you haven't seen this before, it'll be a good kind of starting point to kind of assess what are the important things that are geared, that are tied, that are aligned with your big picture. Okay. So I'm going to jump here to the board. Hopefully you guys can see it. If not, just let me know, put comments. But I'm going to be working on this side real quick. I'm moving my screen real quick. So what it says is if we work on the top 20%, we'll get an 80% return, right? So this is our dream. This is our goal. So we want to align what's important with our dream and goal. So on this side, you put your priorities. What's important? And you list them out, 1 to 10. What are the 10 things that are important, that are geared, that align with your dream and goal, right? And on the other side, what you want to do is you want to put the return. What gives you the most return? Because again, this is a time management webinar. We want to leverage our time properly to do the things that give us the highest return, so we can achieve our dream or goal or objective. So what it's saying is the top 20%, which is these two things, give us an 80% return. This is what it does. So you want to be able to kind of have clarity on what these top two things are because they give you an 80% return to get what you need, which is your dream and goal. So if you haven't done this particular exercise in the past, I would highly encourage you to just kind of take some time and really kind of dive into that and really assess not only the priorities, but what gives you the highest return. We want to leverage our time properly so we can kind of get more done. Okay, so that's the Pareto principle. Again, we don't want to do more. We want to prioritize. We don't want, I don't want you to think less. I want you to think strategically, think priorities. We don't want to just work hard. We want to work smart. Okay, so that is the second insight. Number 3 is now, and think about it. What do we know so far? We have a clarity on our big picture. We have clarity on what are the top priorities, the important things that are going to lead us to that big picture, right? That give us the highest return. And now we need to create a strategy. We need to align that big picture with the important things, your priorities. And remember, I mentioned that we're going to carve out appropriate time to basically do those important things that lead us to that big picture. So we want to create strategies and depend on systems. And obviously, what's a strategy? A strategy is a plan of action designed to help you achieve a major goal or dream. And what is a system? It's simply a process kind of to predictably achieve your goal or dream based on kind of repeatable principles, right? And systems are intentional. They leverage your time. Key word here that I'm gonna keep mentioning throughout the webinar is leverage your time, and it improves your performance. So think about it this way. Think about your strategy, again, is the plan. The system is the execution. How are you going to execute that plan? Think of your strategy as the what. The system is the how. And we all do these particular systems. I just want to raise your awareness that we do this all the time. I want you to think about your morning routine. Your morning routine, right? You don't just get up and walk out the door, right? There's a process involved. And the goal is to get out of Dodge, get out of your home as soon as quickly as possible, whether you're going to work or you're going to your business, wherever you're going. There's a process, right? You wake up, you brush your teeth, you shower, you eat, you pick out your clothes, you get dressed. Maybe you pick out your clothes the night before. Maybe that's part of your system. I know people who do that. Maybe you brush your teeth while you're showering because you want to leverage your time properly. You want to get out of Dodge faster. Maybe you're not the type of person that prepares food before they leave and to work or wherever you're going. Maybe you eat while you're commuting, right? I know women who put on their makeup while they're driving, right? Or on the train or on the bus. That's a system. You're creating a system to get you to your destination, to leverage your time more properly, to improve your performance, right? So what I want you to take into account now, we're trying to carve out the appropriate time, right, to do our priorities. I want you to assess your calendar, identify the potential building blocks, right? Look at your whole calendar, and I want you to kind of really strategize and look at what are the potential building blocks. Remember, you are an architect. You're trying to build something, right? You're trying to create something. So you need to assess what are the times that you can utilize to kind of slot in those priorities that you kind of will get clarity on with the Pareto principle. All right. And that's the second point. You want to plug in once you kind of make an assessment and you see, okay, this is where I have time to do this. This is I have time to plug in something here. You want to slot in those top priorities in those open building blocks. And then you want to create a system. You want to create a system so you're more efficient and more effective. I'm going to give you personal systems. And again, systems are personal to you that make you more effective and leverage your time. I'm gonna give you some that I use to give you kind of an idea. So I mentioned earlier that I'm an entrepreneur, but I also still have a day job. So I do have a commute when I go to work. I work in Times Square. So I have a 15-minute bus ride, 15 to 20-minute bus ride, depending on traffic. And then I hop on the train for another 40 minutes or so. So it's like an hour door to door going and coming. So that's 2 hours in a day. So what I do is I love to read, but I love to get comfortable, highlight, and kind of take notes and different types of things. That 15 to 20 minutes that I'm on the bus is not the appropriate time for me. I can't improve my performance there because I'm usually dodging so many different pedestrians that I'm there with other people trying to get to work, and it's usually hectic in the morning. So that time, what I do in that time, I don't want to waste that time. I usually listen to something that's directed to my dream goal and objective. I'm usually listening to something that's directed to that. And then when I get off the bus, what I do is when I hop on the train, that's when I pick up one of 2 books that is related to my dream, goal, objective. I usually have 2 books there, pull out my highlighter, and that's where I do my reading, right, on the train. And when I do my reading, to kind of piggyback off that, I have a system to take notes, to take insights of things that I'm listening to, that I'm kind of reading. I usually have it right on my phone, on my notes. I usually have on my notepad something that says incubation. So any ideas that I read about, something that sparks my mind, I put it there. Something that triggers me. And whenever I'm kind of searching for new things, new content, whatever I'm looking for new inspiration, I go there. So it's something easy for me to find, and it's a system to leverage my time properly. I don't waste time looking for stuff, and I have everything kind of a little bit organized there, and it improves my performance. So just to give you an idea, you need to create systems, because there's no substitute for being strategic. I know a lot of people who are very, very strategic with, vacations. They plan those bad boys out a year in advance. I know people who are very strategic with their birthdays, right? I know people who have 3 and 4 vacations already planned out, but they don't plan out their life. So you need to really be strategic with your life. There's no substitute for that, okay? So, and if you notice, I created a little mini system for myself right here. I do this all the time because I want to leverage my time. I did not want to write all this out, live during the webinar. So I kind of preset this out so I can kind of leverage my time. So you can create systems at all the time. So just pointing that out for you. Okay. So the 4th item I kind of want to talk about is consistency. So what do we know so far? Big picture. We know what we're aiming for. We have our priorities, what's kind of directed towards that big picture. And then we're carving out the appropriate time to work on those important things to get us to that big picture. Now is where the rubber meets the road. Action begins, right? And what is consistency? We all know what it is. It's simply the prerequisite to excellence. Because no excellent, nobody is. The only way to excellence in any field, wherever you're doing, is to be consistent. All paths have consistency in them. If you ask any successful person, you look at their lives, they live and practice consistency. All right, I'm gonna give you an example. These are whether, I'm a big basketball fan, but whether you're not kind of fully aware or not into basketball, I'm pretty sure you have awareness of these players. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, these are players that are retired, right? These are Hall of Fame players, right? And these players weren't just good a few games. They weren't good over a weekend, right? There was a consistency about their play. That consistency made them great, all right? So what I want to instill in you, now you have the appropriate time that you're going to basically leverage that time properly to align with your important things. Now you need to be consistent. The action needs to be put into that place, all right? So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go back to the board and kind of illustrate an example. So let's say this usually happens at the end of the year. Hopefully you guys can see this. And bear with me a moment. So December, most people kind of get this notion that they want to start losing weight, right? They're going to start in January. January 2nd, that's it. This is when it's going to happen. I'm going to start losing weight. I got a clean slate. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to start eating right, and I'm going to go to the gym, okay? And what usually happens is, right, this is their goal. They want to lose, I hope you guys can see that, 20 pounds. 20 pounds is the goal, right? And what usually happens, that's their dream and goal. This is them. They're trying to navigate there. And what happens is the first part is they get motivation. And this is how most people, this diagram here is how most people kind of see how they kind of put in their minds they have to navigate from where they are to where they want to go. So motivation is the first step. And that's the first initial rush kind of energy, enthusiasm, right? You get, you want to lose weight. Everybody's fired up January 2nd to go. They're motivated. And that usually triggers discipline. Discipline is doing what you have to do when you have to do it, regardless of what's going on around you, right? When you give yourself a command and you follow through on it. And these two things are two sides of the same coin. When you're motivated, you're usually disciplined, right? And then what that leads, what most people believe is that leads to consistency, and that leads them to their goal. And that is in part correct. But what I want to do is add a few layers. I want to kind of discuss a few layers so you're a little bit more aware of the process from navigating from where you are to where you want to be. So what happens is January 2nd, they're ready to go. They're fired up. They go to the gym, right? Then 2 weeks goes by. They don't see the results just yet, right? They have 20 years kind of piling up pounds, and then they want to see results in 2 weeks, right? And you go to the gym, you go on January 2nd, you see it full. And you go January 26th, and you see a different picture. Most people lose their motivation. They lose it because they don't see the results. And what happens is, as I mentioned, it's two sides of the same coin. When you lose motivation, you're going to lose discipline, right? When you have motivation, discipline is not a problem. But when you lose this, you lose discipline, because motivation is usually just a sugar rush that you rise and it crashes, right? So you lose the motivation, you lose the discipline, and then you lose being consistent. You stop doing what you have to do. You're not consistent. And what happens is people lose by February. By February, those lofty goals, those lofty dreams are gone, right? That's what usually happens. And what I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about kind of a few layers that we need to take into account. Hopefully you guys can see that there. So what happens is when you lose that, which is inevitable, at some point, you're not going to be motivated to do what you have to do, right? What you have to do is, that's why it was important, that first kind of insight I gave you, the big picture. You need to have clarity on what that is. And not only clarity on the target, because this is the target. This is the target. But you need to also have that catalyst that pushes you into action. And that, when you kind of go back to your dream, if you have clarity, what's going to bring you back is your why, your purpose. Your purpose begins the process, right? And what that does is it gives you back your motivation, because there's a reason behind that. There's a reason why you want this. It's here. It's your power. It's your source. And even if you lose that, because you might lose that in the process, your why is still going to propel you to do what you have to do when you have to do it. And it'll give you back your discipline, right? And then if you notice, there's a layer here missing. And what you want to do is you want to do what you have to do when you need to do it, regardless of what's going on, to the point that you make it a habit. That it's involuntary. That's part of it. You want to make the discipline, the things that are important to your dream, you want to do it to the point that it becomes a habit. Because when it does, when it's a habit, you're never going to lack consistency. Never. So this is just to give you an awareness. Yes, you want to be motivated, but you want to utilize that because this is it has a short kind of lifespan, right? You want to be able to be disciplined and do it to the point that it becomes a habit. And when it becomes a habit, you're always going to be consistent and you're always going to reach your dream if you do not quit. Okay? So that's why I kind of wanted just to kind of lay that out so you kind of understand that process from navigating from where you are to where you want to be. So number 5 is reflection. You need to reflect and adjust. So we have our dream, we have our priorities, we carved out the time, we're being consistent with what we need to do, but we understand it's a journey from where we are to where we want to be. We need to reflect. And for some folks, action, action, action. I understand that you need to put the action, but you need to back that up with reflection. That's on the back end thinking. Reflection is pausing to allow growth and basically progress to catch up with you, because we're experiencing things 100%, 100 miles an hour. And what we want to do is we want to pause to basically get the insight from all this experience that we're getting, because reflection turns experience into insight. It enables you to make the proper kind of adjustments based on what you're experiencing, because your road from where you are to where you want to be is going to be a bumpy one. You want to assess what's working, what's not working, and what are the adjustments that you need to do kind of along the way. So I highly encourage you to include reflection in your day-to-day. That's 15 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes where you reflect. You reflect on your day, and you reflect by asking yourself questions. What worked today? Where were the lessons on what I was doing today? All right. So you want to be able to reflect, adjust, and kind of plan ahead, because there's a saying out there that says experience is the best teacher. Me personally, I respectfully do not agree with that assessment. It's evaluated experience. That is the best teacher, because that's where the insight lies, right? So remember, sustained thinking beats smart thinking any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Okay? So that is reflection. Number 6 is the cost, right? Your dream is free. Visualizing, thinking about it, you can close your eyes and you can visualize your dream. That is free. But the journey from where you are to where you want to be is going to cost you. There are going to be sacrifices, all right? And there's competing commitments. There's competing commitments in relation to what your habits are, to your beliefs, to your thoughts, right? That compete with your dream. I'm going to talk about more of competing commitments that in relation to time perspective, things that compete with your dream or your goal, right? I'll give you an example. It could be something as simple as brunch with the girlfriends, right? You have that standing kind of appointment, brunch with the girlfriends on Sunday or Saturday, whenever you do it. Or maybe it's happy hour with the fellas, right? Maybe it's birthday parties, right? You have an extended family and every other week there's a birthday party or a wedding, baby showers. I don't know. I'm not sure where you're watching this. In New York, it's summertime. It's like 90 degrees every day. So every day it's a beach day. It's a pool day. This competes with your dream. Maybe it's bad habits. Maybe you spend a lot of time watching TV, recreation, doing something else that's recreational. All these things, you have to make an assessment and see, are you willing to pay the price for your dream? Because it's going to demand that you pay a price. And it requires that price to be paid up front. You need to pay up front to play later. Okay? And these things compete for your attention. They compete with your dream. Okay? And whenever you're kind of faced with these decisions, I want you to ask yourself a question. Does this serve me? Does this serve my dream? Ask yourself that question. Usually, if it's happy hour or investing on yourself, whether it's reading or doing whatever it is that's aligned with your goals, I'm pretty sure you're going to choose the right choice. All right. So you need to assess the cost, and are you willing to pay that price? All right. Number 7 is delayed gratification. It's important. Like I mentioned, we live in an age that we want everything as fast as fast food, right? Everything is as fast as a text, fast as a microwave, right away. We want things progress right away. That's why people quit on they're not consistent, and they quit on what they really want in their life, right? They want it, but they're not willing to kind of go through that process. And what I want you to understand is that progress is not always in the appearance of things. Progress is not always in the appearance of things. Just because you don't see things happening doesn't mean things are not happening for you. As you're navigating through that process, right? You're doing what you have to do, right? Make it a habit, even regardless if you're seeing things happening. If you're really doing the things you need to get done, if you do not quit, like I mentioned, things will blossom and you will see the results that you want to see. So you need to be persistent. Persistent despite the lack of evidence that things are happening. You need to be persistent despite the lack of evidence that things are happening. I want to give you an analogy to kind of bring it home. When you plant a seed, say you plant a seed today, we don't expect to collect the harvest tomorrow, right? We understand that. That's law, right? We understand that. We understand there's a gestation period where things grow and blossom. Same thing happens with your dream. We can't expect in 2 weeks, in a month, things to just blossom. For certain goals, that can happen. But if you have a real compelling goal, compelling dream that's really going to, change your life, that takes time, right? And you need to manage your time properly and not quit in the process, regardless if you're not seeing the evidence that things are happening, all right? Another one I want you to keep in mind is you need to be persistent despite your conditions and circumstances. As you're walking through that, we're all living in different conditions and circumstances, right? You need to continue that process, continue doing what you have to do, and continue make it to a point that it's a habit and be consistent. Because a mentor of mine once said this to me, and it still it still resonates with me. He said something to me that I want to share with you guys. It's, if you're not focused on where you're going, your big picture, you're going to be focused on where you are. If you're not focused on where you're going, you're going to be focused on where you are. And that, my friends, is a problem. We cannot live from that departure point, from where our conditions and circumstances are. You have to transport, you have to create your future in your mind first. Everything is created in life, everything. This computer that I'm using, the table that I had, everything was created first in the mind. And then it was brought to reality. And that took time to transmute that intellectual seed into its physical equivalent. Okay? So, focus on where you're going, not where you are. Okay? And that leads us to the last point I'm going to share, which is, we were talking about time management. Some of the things were directly pointed at time management. Some other things kind of supplement that and kind of help that. But everything kind of falls under the umbrella of growth. We need to embrace growth. And that's the process of becoming more so you can do more. It's the process of improving, developing, and evolving as a person, right? We don't reach dreams. We grow into them, right? So we need to embrace that process of growth because all our results, whether they're good or not so good, are basically stem from what we've been thinking and doing up to this point. All right. So let me repeat that. Our results, your results, my results, regardless if they're good or not so good, stem from what we've been thinking, and doing up to this point. And growth is the key that allows us to expand our thoughts, our ideas, our abilities, our capacity, right? It's the bridge between where you are and where you want to go, right? Growth is the only guarantee. If you're not expanding, if you're not elevating your perspective, your awareness, your skills, your abilities, your thoughts, your ideas, your world, without it, we are now all we're ever going to be. Without growth, we're now all we're ever going to be. All right. So in the manner that you grow, your ideas grow, your business grows, your overall world grows and expands. All right. So this whole webinar is more to help you obviously manage your time properly, but to live a life by design. You're the architect of your future. We don't want to live by default. If you live by default, life happens to you. You want to be causative in your life. Like that universal law of cause and effect. You want to be on the cause side. You want to cause things to happen. You want to initiate things to happen, right? And you need to leverage your most valuable asset properly in order for you to navigate from where you are to where you want to be. It's a powerful tool that we all have at our disposal, time. And we want to leverage it intelligently, to the realization of our dreams, goal, and objectives. So I hope, I hope this was helpful to you. I know this is kind of an overview real quick, but speak to the person who invited you, right? Speak to them, ask them about the future events that we have. We do these on a weekly basis and we rotate speakers and we talk about different topics that could help you expand your thoughts, your ideas, your perspective, your awareness. All right. So stay connected to that person. Stay connected to this particular channel. We here at the One Academy believe in you. We believe in your potential. We believe in your dream. And I hope to see you in a future webinar. God bless and good night. Thank you.